Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the absolute highest stakes arena in the medical device industry. We are talking about that exact point where patient safety violently collides with corporate risk management. If you operate, invest, or study in the healthcare space, you probably already know that quantifying product safety isn't just some bureaucratic compliance checklist, it is literal survival.
I mean, just think about the sheer scale of the medical equipment industry for a second. We're covering everything from your standard disposable surgical gloves all the way up to incredibly specialized, complex machines. So, what actually happens when a life-saving device fails? Well, often critical information about safety and side effects only really pops up long after those controlled clinical trials are done and the regulatory approvals are in hand. Real-world application is the ultimate test here, because you just can't perfectly replicate the unpredictable variables of mass manufacturing and vastly diverse patient populations in a lab. And when these safety issues do materialize out in the real world, the consequences are immediate and they are catastrophic. According to the SASB industry standards, things like equipment failures, manufacturing defects, design flaws, or even just the inadequate disclosure of risks, these are the primary catalysts for massive corporate crises. A design flaw isn't just an engineering hiccup, It's essentially a ticking time bomb out in the market, just waiting for the worst possible moment to detonate. Because a single manufacturing defect doesn't just harm a patient. As terrible as that is, it triggers this relentless domino effect. First, unfavorable media coverage can absolutely shred your brand equity overnight. Then come the significant product liability claims, deep regulatory investigations, and of course, those massive regulatory fines. This whole cascade creates a severe financial hemorrhage for the manufacturer. It proves without a shadow of a doubt that patient risk is inextricably linked to financial risk. The cost of a failure multiplies exponentially with every step it takes away from the factory floor.
So here is our agenda for this explainer. To understand exactly how to manage this immense liability, we're going to deconstruct the anatomy of these risks. We'll quickly run through the high stakes of medical devices, the financial fallout of product failures, how we track recalls and early alerts, the severe consequences of fatalities and enforcement actions, and finally, how rigorous disclosure helps protect both patients and the bottom line.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the high stakes of medical devices. We're grounding our analysis today in the SASB standards, which, as you might know, are now under the SASB. Specifically, we're looking at the healthcare sector standard for medical equipment and supplies. This framework gives us highly targeted metrics, specifically under the code HCMS 250 for rigorously tracking product safety risks. And this isn't just any metric. This is the exact lens global investors use to judge a company's operational competence and overall viability. Which brings us to Section 2, the fallout of product failures. How do we even begin to measure the financial devastation when things go wrong?
The guiding principle of this standard is actually pretty blunt. It basically says that entities that limit recalls and safety concerns are the ones that better protect shareholder value. Bottom line, managing safety isn't back-office regulatory compliance, it is front-line financial defense. If you aren't measuring your safety failures, your shareholders are completely exposed to sudden, catastrophic losses.
Moving right along to Section 3, tracking recalls and alerts. Let's look at the most immediate metric for product failure, which is SASB metric 250A.1.
Under this metric, companies have to explicitly track total recalls and the total units recalled. But here's the really crucial part. You have to distinguish between voluntary recalls, where a company proactively pulls a product themselves, versus those mandated by a regulatory authority. That distinction sends a massive signal to the market. It basically asks, who is driving the safety bus here? Is the company taking control of the crisis, or is a regulator forcing their hand?
Now, to accurately measure the true financial blow of a recall, SASB advises tracking and disclosing the revenues of that recalled product for the 12 months prior to the recall date. This is way beyond just counting broken widgets, right? It's about tying a physical product failure directly back to the income statement. For the really big recalls, you're dissecting the root cause, the remedy costs, and any legal proceedings that followed. It becomes a full-on forensic accounting exercise to see how deep the financial wound actually goes. But smart risk management is also about early warnings, right? Metric 250A.2 asks companies to disclose if their products are listed in any public medical safety or adverse event databases, including those global pharmacovigilance databases. This is proactive intelligence gathering. You're trying to catch the smoke before the fire burns down the factory, spotting early indicators of serious risks before they blow up into massive liability claims or forced recalls. Which leads us to Section 4. Fatalities and enforcement actions. This is the grim reality of what happens when those early warnings are missed.
Metric 250A.3 is as stark as it gets. Companies are required to explicitly track and disclose the total number of fatalities associated with their products, usually using jurisdictional adverse event reporting systems. This is the ultimate lagging indicator. It represents a catastrophic breakdown in product design and an absolute failure of every safeguard that was built to protect the end user.
And when good manufacturing practices, the fundamental rules of process control, are violated, the regulatory wrath escalates on a very predictable brutal curve, which is tracked in Metric 250A4. It starts with basic non-compliance warnings and ramps up to formal warning letters. Ignore those, and you're looking at product seizures, forced recalls, and finally legally binding consent decrees. Honestly, once you hit a consent decree, the government is essentially standing right over your shoulder, micromanaging every operational move you make.
So, how do you stop that escalation and regain control? That brings us to our final section, protecting value through disclosure.
When you step back and look at these 4 key SASB metrics, recalls, safety alerts, fatalities, and GMP enforcement actions, they give you a complete, actionable map of a company's liability landscape. You've got your quantitative hard data, like units recalled, mixed with the qualitative reality of early warnings in public databases. Together, they give risk managers, operators, and investors an uncompromising checklist for navigating product liability.
But look, just measuring things won't save you in a crisis. For every single enforcement action or major recall, the framework demands you disclose the exact corrective actions you took. Saying, "we failed and we're sorry," just doesn't cut it. You have to detail specific changes in operations, whether that's refining a manufacturing process, updating business partners, changing the product, or completely overhauling staff training. You have to prove to the market that the root cause is totally dead and buried. Ultimately, treating these safety metrics as a dynamic early warning system doesn't just save lives, it actively shields the bottom line from total ruin. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought for the next time you're evaluating a medical device manufacturer. Are their product safety disclosures just a bureaucratic check-the-box exercise? Or are they weaponizing that data to genuinely protect their patients and, by extension, their shareholders? Think about it. Thanks for joining me today, and keep asking the tough questions.